right, welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself, of course, and leading other people. I am John Laurito, your host, here today with Lauri Andreacchio, who's a great friend of mine, longtime friend, and everything from an artist to a yoga instructor and practitioner, and now host of a show called Off the Mat. Lauri, it is great to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, John. It's wonderful. So honored to be here.
I appreciate it, and I know we've been talking about getting together like this for a long time. So I'm glad to finally make it happen. We're sitting now in the beginning of 2021, thankfully past 2020, on to a bigger and better year. So happy New Year!
Same to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Pave the
crazy.
way for something much brighter to happen. So,
You got
yeah.
it. Well, 2020 has been a transformational year for a lot of people. And I want to talk today. I know, we were talking about the concept, and this is something I think many people just don't necessarily understand the meaning to, but living in true alignment. And we'll talk about what that really means. But maybe a good starting point would be um, to really take us back to when you were first introduced to what that really even is, and then the difference that it started to make in your life. So why don't we start there?
Great. Yeah. So, way back, wind it back. Um, I was an athlete from probably birth. So, and I think I always use some sort of mental imagery before, like I was a gymnast before I started a routine or something. I would picture it in my head almost innately and just go over and over it. So then fast forward to high school, I was very fortunate to have our swim team coach. I was a diver, not a swimmer, but
Mhm.
the swim team coach brought in a wonderful man who did mindfulness training. It was visualization, breathing exercises, and it hit me like it exploded my world. It introduced me to the power of what your mind can do, what your thoughts can do, and how it can propel your reality. It was just
Wow.
amazing.
It's amazing how sometimes one person coming into your life, or a speech like that, or somebody coming in, does change your life. So now there are other people, I'm sure, in that team that heard that didn't do anything with it, but you did something with it. What did that
Oh,
start to look
sure.
like? What did it start to impact?
So, um, immediately, of course, my performance as a diver, I remember one time in particular where totally just splat, got the judges wet, everything. You could have fallen apart or practiced what I was taught by Marcus and stopped, breathed, let that go, which wasn't an easy thing, honestly, but
Mhm.
and then continued from there and ended up winning. So ended up
Wow.
from a failed dive, and getting the judges wet to just recomposing and winning. So,
Wow. That's incredible.
and using that for tests, for speaking
Hmm.
engagements, for um, entertaining. When you went to the nurse, we did a little trick where we slowed our heart rate down by breathing. So when we went to get a physical, say a little fun and drop your heart rate, and the nurse, it would freak her out.
Is that right? Wow. Like how slow would you get your heartbeat down to?
Pretty slow. I mean, I don't know the beats, but enough for them to check and say, "Are you okay?" Like really,
Wow.
and so that translates into a calmness too. So if you're nervous, you have the ability to stop, to breathe,
Mm.
and when that heart's racing, a breath is worth, it's golden.
Wow. Well, I want to talk about that for sure. I know, I've shared, I suffered from panic attacks for 20 plus years. I know how debilitating that can be. There's so many people with anxiety, and just
Yeah.
people even that don't have anxiety but get nervous before presentations. So having the power to calm yourself and slow your heartbeat like that, and also hit the reset button when you've had. It's interesting. I've always wondered. I've watched professional athletes, and sometimes you'll be watching a game or something, and an athlete will make a horrible play or an error, or fumble or whatnot, and you're like, wow, how do they even recover? But you'll watch them, and their body language almost as though it didn't even happen, and
Right.
that's why they're as high level as they are. So,
Exactly.
that's pretty amazing when you figured that out. Now, was that, how hard or easy was it for you to learn to do that?
Well, I mean, it's a practice. So you slip in and out of it. And there are times, I mean, still I get overwhelmed and nervous but you go back to it. So it's an ongoing, and I think as much as you put into it, and I did practice a lot,
Hmm.
um, with different visualization techniques, with different, even putting myself out of my comfort zone. And I remember auditioning for a play just because it was so out of my comfort zone, and doing it and kind of killing it, but just the same, it took me to a place of, wow, that was really nerve wracking. So I call Marcus and I'm like, what the heck? So that was something I needed to work on a little more.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's a skill. It's not just that you know how to do it or don't know how to do it. It's a
no, it's a
skill
skill.
of being
Yeah.
able to do it better and better.
And I even take it to the dentist and talk about freaking somebody out. I can get fillings replaced or dental work done without Novocaine.
Mm.
And people say, well, your pain threshold's high. Like, no, that's not it. It doesn't hurt when you can relax. And when you tense up, it amplifies things. So when you can relax, it actually doesn't hurt. You might feel something, but then you let it go and it's gone.
Really?
So,
I never would have thought that. First of all, you're talking to a guy who is the biggest baby in the world when it comes to going to the dentist. So, to all dentists out there, I fear you. But in reality, though, so you're saying that you can get it so that you relax yourself enough so you don't actually feel the physical pain or as much of the physical pain.
sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
And again, it was learned. I don't know if I could jump in and have done that, or, maybe you can. It's up to you. It's all, but it can be learned.
Mhm.
And if, I work with athletes and some medical staff too, to help people when, you say shake it off, whether you're an athlete, whether you're going in for a procedure, and they say, oh, just relax. Well, how do you relax?
Mm.
So giving people the tool, allow them to relax. It slows your blood rate, your blood flow,
Mhm.
your heart's pumping,
Mhm.
fewer pumps. So if
Mhm.
you're hurt, especially if you're injured, um, you're not going to be bleeding as much because your heart's not going to be pumping as much.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but hard to learn in the moment. If
Mhm.
you have a little practice at it initially,
Mm.
when you're in those stressful situations, you can remind yourself, oh yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I want to actually practice that if we can in a
oh yeah.
minute, but a couple questions before then. So, for the audience that doesn't really know, there's two phrases or words. One is mindfulness. I've had
Mhm.
people ask, "What is that?" or "How would you describe that?" What's your definition of mindfulness?
So, I mean, not so complicated. It's just honestly being where you are when you're in the moment, um, not going back to the past, and especially rehashing things. Maybe you messed up, maybe it was something great you did, but it's gone. This is all you have is right now. So whatever you can do to bring yourself here. And if you're worried about what's might happen, first of all, it might not happen. The only thing you really have is the present.
Mm-hmm.
um, and in Kung Fu Panda terms, if you, the present is a gift. That's why
Yeah.
it's called the present.
Yeah.
uh,
I love that.
so the breath is a way to bring yourself to the present, because you're here, your breath's with you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can just observe that, it helps you to refocus
Mm-hmm.
on what you're doing right now and enjoying it, or
Yeah.
making it be the most it can be for you.
Well, it's interesting because I talk also to, and I'm a parent, you're a parent. I talk to a lot of parents who are feel and recognize that there's times, and maybe, I don't know if it's worse or better with the pandemic where everybody's working virtually, but where they recognize and their kids recognize that they're not present. Physically, they're there, but mentally they are not. They're somewhere else. And
Sure.
I know I've been guilty of that many times where, especially years ago, I could not. It was so hard for me to focus on the present and be truly present, not just physically. So I would imagine that helps everybody, not just people in business, not just people, not just athletes, but really everybody being present
Absolutely. Yeah.
is probably an opportunity for most people.
Yeah. And the other thing too, and if with all that's going on, you can be overwhelmed, you can be angry, you can be frustrated. And it's not that you're denying that, let it be. You feel it, but then kind of blow that away and just see what is actually in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
and be with what is actually there and not what you're imagining. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we just create it in our head
Mm-hmm.
of what we
Yeah.
think
Right.
is happening,
Yeah. Well, and let me ask you this, because there's another. I thought of there used to be these three different kind of dimensions. It was my past, my present, my future. But then you've also got, it's not just living in the present, but because there's many people that are living in the present, but they're not in their own world. They're so tuned into social media and everything. And you see kids that are locked into their phones all the time, that are living in the life outside of their boundaries of physically where they are. They're truly somewhere else, even though, and they're so concerned
Sure.
with other people. How has that impacted people, and what should people be thinking about in relation to that?
So as far as just
Well,
seeing all
yeah,
the stimulus on social media
yeah. I'm
and
just wondering, if
how
is that is do you see that as a problem? Is that something that
it
we've?
can be,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Well,
um even even so much, forget trying to obtain something that's unobtainable, because a lot of times everybody puts out this spit shined image of what they're not really. And so if it triggers something in you
mm-hmm,
where you feel less than, or whatever it's bringing up for you,
mm-hmm,
it's kind of a pointing out what you need to work on
mm-hmm,
with anybody. So um, I think with social media, it's a little more challenging too, because there's a whole lot. When we were talking about alignment too, this, when you're constantly on your computer, constantly on your phone. So one, your alignment, your physical alignment is coming in and hunching over.
mm-hmm.
Your thoughts are going elsewhere.
Yeah,
So your alignment, physically, emotionally, spiritually, is all over the place. And
right.
you're closing down, shutting down a lot of the time. Not
Mm-hmm,
necessarily, but
mm-hmm.
a lot of times this is what's happening.
Yeah,
So,
right.
um,
So let's talk about that. Being living in alignment. That's another one that and am a big believer in that. But again, there's many people that don't understand what that concept means. How can you explain that to people? What does living in alignment actually look like, or what is it?
so yeah, this is actually, I'm part of a group that meets monthly, and we've been doing it with another mentor of mine, Andy Domenico, and we've been practicing this. And what does it mean to be in alignment? Again, it's everything. It's a practice. So I need that community to help me bring me back into alignment as well, which it's your thoughts, your physical body, your spirituality. Is it all pointing in a direction that you want to go? Or are you scattered? Are your thoughts telling you one thing when you want to go in one direction? Is your body language telling you another?
Hmm.
It's all connected. So what can you do? It could begin with just reprogramming. I love affirmations and intentions. So reprogramming your thoughts,
Hmm.
even something with little, when you mess up and you call yourself an idiot, or you call yourself whatever
Hmm.
other kind of name you want to think about, that replace it with,
Hmm.
where are you trying to go? Are you trying to be powerful, loving, kind, whatever that quality is? Tell yourself you are that.
Hmm.
So replace all those, and that you start reprogramming
Hmm.
that ongoing. It can be deep, that programming that you have ingrained, and it
Yeah.
goes down to your cells. So if you can start with your thoughts,
Yeah.
you wouldn't talk to your children that way. Hopefully not. I mean, some people do, but think
Yeah.
about how we talk to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That's a
So
great
getting your
point. Is
thoughts
most
in alignment with what you want out of life.
are most people's self-talk negative or
I
positive?
think so.
Yeah. Yeah. We tend to be really tough on ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So are there techniques that you use or you recommend? So if somebody is going into a big presentation and they're psyching themselves out and they're saying in their mind, I guess the first thing is they've got to be listening to their self-talk and be aware of it. But if they're telling themselves, "Oh, I'm going to screw up. I got all these people here. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. I'm going to get flustered." What techniques can they use?
So, first thing, take a breath. Kind of assess where you are. So you don't want to deny all that's going on. So kind of just take a few breaths and notice, because you might not even realize the tension that
Mhm.
you're creating in your body. You might not realize what you're actually saying to yourself in your mind. So take a few breaths just to notice, and then take a few breaths to start clearing. So if you, it's simple thing is just breathing in through your nose, and try not to breathe into your chest, because when we're nervous, we tend to be up here. So let it sink into your belly, and you can even put your hands on your belly. Let that expand as you inhale. As you exhale, the belly draws in, and physiologically and physics, it's how your body works. So your diaphragm's pushing your breath out. So you're allowing yourself to breathe a little more naturally. Inhale down, belly softens. That brings the diaphragm down to bring more air in to your lungs. Exhale.
Mm.
So a few breaths just in and out through your nose. You don't even have to necessarily control it. Just
Mhm.
breathe.
So in and out through your nose or in through your nose, out through your mouth? In.
So you can do in and out, in through your nose and out through your mouth, just a different technique. In through your
Mhm.
nose and out through your nose is a little more calming if you need that. There's another one that I do that's in through your nose, sigh through your mouth.
Mm.
And that just lets everything kind of drop.
Okay.
So 3 of those go a long way.
Yeah. Okay.
And this just brings you down,
Mhm.
and it allows the heart rate to come down. It allows kind of to shake things off. So from there, you can start breathing in. Think of your intention. Think of an affirmation.
Mhm.
You know, it could be, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I'm powerful. I am anything
Mhm.
that's, and just start replacing
Yeah. It's
your
interesting. Everybody
thoughts.
needs, you almost need a mantra, a personal mantra that
Yes.
gets you, a lot of times mine is just I'll look in the mirror before a presentation and I'll say, "You got this." Whatever. And it's just something that triggers a certain reaction and you kind of train yourself to that. The breathing, I never really did that much, and somebody introduced me to that, and many people have heard about that, but they kind of fluff it off. It really, really, really works. I mean, it's almost, if you do it right, it's almost impossible to be nervous and have your anxiety high when you really do it right, because it just does such a great job of relaxing you and slowing your breathing and your heart rate and everything, and gets you in a better position to do what you're going to do.
Yeah. And if you can start to pay attention a little bit more to how you're feeling, you might catch yourself at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
just feeling that tension coming on, feeling the nervousness. You'll start to feel your heart race.
Mm-hmm.
So before it gets too out of hand, bring
Mm-hmm.
yourself back.
Yeah.
And it's just such a simple
Mm-hmm.
thing to
Yeah.
breathe. And if you're, um, I do a lot, even when I'm teaching, and sometimes we'll kind of go in and out of poses and things. I'm like, wait a minute, how did I get here? Because my mind flutters off sometimes, and it does.
Yeah.
So I take a breath. I'm like, okay, I got this. It's
Yeah.
kind of easy when you do in a yoga class because like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, let's just take a breath.
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
but you do. And if you're speaking, you don't have to fill every second with words.
Mm-hmm.
So the pause, sometimes it's helpful for the people hearing what you're saying to give them a chance to digest.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also helpful for you to realign and refocus.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're absolutely right with that. It's very powerful. The pause, silent moment in a presentation is very powerful when done at the right time and the right
yeah,
place. Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things I know people feel sometimes as though, and we've all made bad decisions at different periods of time. Uh, you think about decision making and living in alignment also impacts that. That also has a lot to do with decision making too. It affects decision making. I guess that's a better way to say it, because I've seen people that have made and me included, where you make a decision that's a bad decision. You look back, you're like, wow, I just wasn't in the right mindset to make that decision. I had too many emotions going on, or I had too much stuff going on, or and you kind of think back and you're like, yeah, that was pretty, should have been obvious at that time. How do you help people with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
It's a breath.
Yeah.
you know, sometimes those moments where you make that bad decision, it's actually, in the end, it brings you to where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But, how can you, again, I think it comes down to taking that pause, taking that breath. Sometimes you have to take yourself out of it. I
Mm-hmm.
find myself, if any of you have teenagers, sometimes you get into it. And I find myself where you're just going back and forth and you're getting into this confrontation and it's not helping.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you have to step back. And I think even in the laws of physics, opposite and equal forces, they make things more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a little bit of kung fu in my background too, that, that physics part of it where someone's pressing at you, if you draw back and spin and spiral, you're taking the power away
Mm-hmm.
from them and bringing it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you fight it, you're giving what, and it doesn't have to be a person, it could be the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving it more power. So sometimes you need to just drop back and
Mm-hmm.
breathe
Interesting. Yeah.
and
That's
wait for, see, the thing when you start being mindful and in the moment and quieting your mind, because a lot of times there's all kinds of things going on in there, just chatter, chatter, chatter. When you start quieting, it starts to fall off and you hear your guidance.
mm-hmm.
So whatever you believe in, a higher power, whatever that is for you, you
Mm-hmm.
can start hearing
Mm-hmm.
what it's telling you to do,
Yeah.
which would
So,
be more in alignment with your purpose.
so let me ask you this selfishly, because this is my issue is my mind is going a million miles a minute, and it's very very hard for me to slow my mind down and quiet my mind sometimes, and I'm wondering or guessing if the answer is meditation and learning how to do that. But what advice do you give to people? How do you slow your mind down or
So
quiet your mind?
yeah, there's different ways. And with say a yoga class, I think for especially someone who's really is their mind's really racing and they're just starting. So it doesn't have to be a yoga class, even as some kind of physical activity kind of works the kinks out. And that's honestly what the movement is about in yoga. It's
Mm-hmm.
not showing off that I can put my foot behind my head, or it's not really about how flexible you are, although it is because that translates to your mind flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
but it's for you personally. You store things in your body that emotions and in certain areas. So moving it around and opening it up is helpful however you do it, and bringing in mindfulness to that when
Mm-hmm.
you move,
Mm-hmm.
it helps you to be again in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
um, at the beauty of a yoga class, at the end there's a relaxation shavasana, which is the hardest pose for a lot of people, and you're just lying there. Well, if you understand why it's hard, because you can hear all the chatter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's uncomfortable a lot of
Yeah.
times because maybe you didn't notice it before. I'm like, oh my God, it's just firing off.
Yeah.
So my advice is, when you do something physical, kind of to wear yourself out in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's easier to sit or lie and do it for a couple minutes. You don't have to do it for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
When it gets uncomfortable, sit with it a little, just a little more, but
Mm-hmm.
don't make it so you're tightening back up and you're forcing it. Just,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and
So,
focusing on something like a
yeah.
candle flame or something like that helps as well.
Okay, that's good advice. By
So,
the way, Sravasava is my favorite part of yoga. I love yoga, but I love that ending where you get to, but maybe I don't understand the point of it. And you bring up a great point. It's to clear your mind. Or part of it. Let's talk about yoga. First of all, how did you come about yoga? How did that come into your life?
well, yeah, as we, I guess, hinted on earlier, that visualization and meditation techniques that I was getting in high school, and I was always very fitness oriented and things, and I just stumbled on yoga, as it were, and it was also, I guess it was in a gym, and it was a very physical class, but there was something about it that was a little bit more. It's like,
Hmm.
yes, this is physical, but the teacher just hinted, because again, he had little restrictions being in a gym.
Hmm.
Um, but it was the complete package. It was spiritual. It was um, physical. It brought everything together for me, and I was hooked. So I
Wow.
did a teacher training not long after.
Hmm.
I found that the things that I was learning, you say on the mat, you take them out into your life, as I did when I was practicing with Marcus.
Hmm.
You use them for everything. So I was implementing the skills that I learned in yoga, continuing to learn and grow, and
Is that right?
whether it's a challenging pose that,
Hmm.
or a technique that's uncomfortable,
Hmm.
though, how can I take that and challenge myself in my life?
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Hey, so that's really, and I think a lot of people that take up yoga find that it does really make a big impact in your overall life. What specifically, like, how does it translate? How does it help outside for somebody that might be that busy executive or something that feels like they don't have any time and wow, I can't really get to a yoga class. What can they expect to get from it if they are willing to dedicate the time to it?
they can, well, expect no expectations. That's one thing I did learn, is trying to not have expectations, kind of be open to what is being presented.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't mean you just don't have a plan, but I have to get this out of this. It might not look the way that you think. So you have an intention. I would say, if you haven't practiced yoga before, there are all different kinds of types. There's all different kinds of styles, teachers. Try a bunch of different kinds. Never let anybody tell you have to move in a certain way. Some teachers will do that. You have to put your foot at this angle. You have to hold yourself in a certain way. I say, try it. If it doesn't work for your body, you do it your way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain, I guess, safety things as far as alignment in your body, but then it's that are kind of universal, but then it comes and it's personal, because your body's different than anyone else's, the way it's put together.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I move isn't going to be the way you move.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I teach is trying to help you find your personal alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how you feel in your body. So that's part of the process. Part of the practice is bringing that sensitivity and that awareness to how you feel
Mm-hmm.
all
Yeah.
over, emotionally, physically.
Mm-hmm.
What is this doing? Is this excruciating, or is this that? It
Mm-hmm.
might be a little, there might be some discomfort, but
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't be painful. So
So what about, and I will say, that I've, as you know, I've done a little bit of yoga. I've not much, I've not done nearly enough, but I will say every time I've done it, I feel great afterwards. And I say, wow, I've got to keep doing this.
Yeah,
For that person who might maybe have never done it before, that might be intimidated by it because they're like, well, I'm not physically in the shape to do it.
exactly.
I'm not flexible. What do you say to somebody like that to encourage them?
Yeah.
What could they, you know, how do they get involved?
Yeah. Well, that's I think the biggest excuse that I'll get is I'm not flexible. I can't do yoga. Well, maybe I don't say should, but that's probably exactly the reason why you should do it.
Hmm.
Because um, one, it doesn't have to look any particular way. You don't have to look like the magazine covers, the Instagram post of these extreme poses. A lot of them, honestly, aren't even healthy for your body. There's a lot of things. And again, the way I practice and the way I teach is to find what's right for your body. If you have a tiny little bend in whatever you're stretching or moving, and that feels good to you, it's perfect.
Hmm.
So it's not about being a certain shape, it's about bringing your awareness into the moment and taking care of your body, because I mean we are human. We have to take care of our physical bodies.
Hmm.
So that translates into a whole lot. You can perform better, you can live a better life, you
Hmm.
can,
Hmm.
you know, stresses that happen when you're off the mat, you say, oh wow, how did I breathed into this, I changed my alignment, I did something to help myself. You can take those things and use them.
Hmm. What about now with not being able to necessarily go into a yoga studio
Mhm.
physically to go to a class? Is it the same if they're doing it virtually?
Well, I mean, it's different,
Hmm.
but different's okay.
Hmm.
um, Ultimately, the way I see it, I mean, definitely having a teacher, especially when you're starting, is extremely helpful. But ultimately, you're responsible for you in anything life. No one can do it for you. No one knows, no matter how um, educated you are about the human body and things that, and yoga in general, I don't know what's going on in your body. So I can suggest do it like this, but it's up to you to pay attention to how you're feeling. So you can do a video, you can do a virtual class. And I do a lot of virtual classes now. Um, so you kind of get that feedback. If you do have a question, you can
Hmm.
ask a question. You don't have to be in complete silence during a yoga class.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but you try it out. And if it doesn't work for you, you change it to make it work for you, or
Hmm.
it might not be the right style too. There's
Hmm.
very, very gentle. I
Hmm.
mean, I do a yoga kickboxing class. So if you want to
Wow, that's
sweat,
cool.
yeah,
That sounds like
I
fun.
blast the music and, it's totally inappropriate, but yeah,
That's
it
cool.
has some fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely. Now, I
it
know
can,
also a few years ago you started Off the Mat, which is
yeah.
your TV show. So, what was that like? What got you to do that? What was that impetus, and what was that start like?
Well, talk about, yeah, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Um, I was actually asked to come in to talk about the health benefits of yoga on one of the medical shows. The voices in my head said, no way, no, not going to do it. So I took a breath and said, oh, geez, I have to do this, just because there was such strong protest in my head about doing it. So, yeah, like this is something I have to do. So before I gave myself the chance to say no, I said yes. And after what I thought, because those things came up for me as far as being nervous and I breathed, there was no prep. I kind of went in, okay, talk about this and I'll talk about that. And I was like, okay, I had to use what I was taught really in the moment to just, yeah, I know what I'm talking about here, but you do get a little flustered.
Uh,
So after what I thought was terrible interview, the owner of the station came and said, do you want your own show?
wow, you
I
must have
kind of
done
went,
pretty well.
what? From again, voices in my head said, "Oh, hell no." um,
Mhm.
but of course, I said yes, and it was live at the time, so that was a whole nother growth experience for me. You kind of have to let things go.
Mhm.
I mean, you don't have to, but it's so much more enjoyable. If you mess up, you let it go. If you say the wrong thing, so the more I let myself be just who I am,
Yeah.
take it or leave it, like it, don't like it,
Yeah.
the more fun it got for me, the better I think it came across. And it was
Mhm.
just, the growth was tremendous.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. First of all, you just congratulations, first of all, because that's a huge accomplishment and it's a great show. Um,
Thank you.
and that's something that most people, it would really scare them to death to think about hosting a show and a live show. And, to your point, life is live. I mean, it's not like you hit a rewind button. I mean, every day and every moment of
Yeah.
every day, we're living true life in a live fashion. So, but you said something there that I think is really valuable, and that's having fun. I mean, I think about a turning point for me in doing speaking engagements, and sometimes you're in front of thousands of people. It's intimidating. It can be really scary, but
Sure.
I found that when I get myself in that mindset of just saying, listen, I'm going out there to have fun, and I'm going to have a
Yeah.
great time up here. And I know that if I have a presentation or topic that I talk about that I can make fun and have fun delivering it and talking about it, then it's going to be enjoyable and it's going to be a
Yeah.
great experience. So I think most people put so much pressure on themselves and they take themselves too seriously, they take the situation too seriously, and then you forget that, you know what, we're doing it because we love doing it and it's a passion.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if it doesn't make you smile, why do it?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
and
Yeah.
and that's not to say that you're not going to hit bumps and things along the way. And every waking moment is not going to be rainbows and butterflies.
Hmm.
However, if most of your waking moments can be rainbows and butterflies, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
You start from going up and down these big ebb and flows to maybe a little
Yeah.
more, you know, in
Right.
alignment.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Uh,
and it's just and fun. I mean, I play games on off the mat. I've been known to have a very well respected high end, physician come in and play operation just because we play bop it just to shake it up and laugh. And
yeah.
and it's a focusing um tool also. I think
Right.
when you're playing a game that requires some
Yeah.
skill, especially if you're trying to look. I don't know if you've ever played bop it, but you have to
Oh yeah.
listen,
Right.
you have visual cues and audio cues, and you have to do things like
Yeah. It's fun.
you have to
It's hard.
focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simon, so have fun.
Well, life should be fun. Well, this speaking of fun, this has been a lot of fun. I know we're running short on time here and this time has flown by, but it's been valuable for me personally. I hope it's been
Oh,
valuable. I'm sure it has for everybody, regardless of what their level of involvement in being mindful or living in alignment or their experience or lack of experience. I think they've taken away a lot. If you were to leave them with one thought, and now going into 2021, kickstarting the year, whole fresh new year, whether it's a piece of advice or maybe a mantra of yours or just kind of a way to think through things, what might that be? What would you leave them with?
well, the breath. you know, take take a breath and see what you know dig down, maybe not so deep, and see what resonates with you. Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And have that be your personal mantra. So when the negativity, that chatter, that critic starts to come up, and say hi to the critic, kind of be humored by the critic, and then send them along or her along the way, and replace with that new programming. I am fill in the blank.
Hmm.
It goes a long way.
Yeah,
Stop, pause, take a breath. I am. And
excellent. I
do
love it.
something different. Take a
Yeah,
yoga.
great words of wisdom. I greatly appreciate you coming today. If people want to find out more about you or about what you do, about your show, how do they get a hold of you?
So, um, easiest place, probably my website. It's lauriandreacchio.com. That's a whole lot of letters, but I'm sure
We'll put it
you'll
in
have my
in
name
the show
spelled out
notes. Yeah.
in info. So LauriAndreacchio.com. There's links to YouTube. I have some videos that from very, very short practices to breaths, meditations, to really long, well, not really long, but a half hour, 15 minutes to an hour practices. You can do that. There's links to Off the Mat and RVN TV. Social media, it's Kali Soul Art and Yoga, which is my brand.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a slew of yoga mats to help with affirmations that are inspired by my paintings and my artwork. On the website, there's links to everything.
Excellent.
And,
we'll put all
say hi.
We will put all that in the show notes. But this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming, and down the road a bit, I'd love to have you back on for kind of a part
thank
2.
you.
So
do a yoga practice.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. We'll do a live one. That'd be great. Excellent.
So, thank you so much, Don. It's such an honor.
Thank you. Excellent. And thanks all of you for joining today on today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader with Lauri Andreacchio, who is an artist, yoga instructor, and also host of Off the Mat. All of her info will be in the show notes, so you can be sure to take a visit and check her out. And stay tuned for more great stuff coming up in future episodes. As always, like, share, subscribe, go down below to the 5-star rating, give us 5 stars, and let us know your thoughts, and appreciate you joining today. Thanks, everybody.